You must have done something to upset him, my mother said, watching me struggle to get up from the floor. The pain in my back was excruciating, but her words hurt more than any physical injury. My brother Marcus stood in the doorway, his face a mixture of anger and satisfaction. My name is Emma Collins, and at 24, I'd just experienced what would be the last time my brother would ever lay his hands on me. Though I didn't know it yet, that evening would change everything. I'd come home to help pack up my childhood home. My parents were downsizing and needed assistance sorting through years of accumulated memories. Marcus, my 28-year-old brother, had always been the golden child, despite his volatile temper and tendency toward violence. The incident started over something trivial. I'd moved some of his old sports trophies into a donation box. "These are from high school," I'd explained when he discovered them. "You haven't looked at them in years." His face had turned that familiar shade of red, the one that always preceded an explosion. Before I could react, he grabbed me by my shoulders and slammed me against the wall. The impact sent shockwaves through my spine, and I crumpled to the ground. Now, watching me writhe in pain, my mother's only concern was for Marcus's feelings. "Emma always knows how to push his buttons," she told my father, who had finally emerged from his study after hearing the commotion. I didn't. I tried to speak, but the pain made it difficult to catch my breath. "Just apologize to your brother," my father said, not even looking at me. "You know how important those trophies are to him." Marcus smirked, arms crossed. "Yeah, Emma, apologize." I'd apologized so many times over the years. For provoking him when he broke my finger at age 12. For embarrassing him when he pushed me down the stairs at 16. For annoying him when he slammed my hand in a car door at 20. Each time, my parents found a way to make it my fault. Each time, I believed them a little less. "I'm sorry," I whispered, not because I meant it, but because I knew it was the only way to end this. Marcus nodded, satisfied, and left the room. My parents followed him, probably to comfort him about how difficult his sister was. I lay there for what felt like hours, trying to find a position that didn't send lightning bolts of pain through my body. When I finally managed to stand, I knew something was seriously wrong. The pain wasn't fading like usual. If anything, it was getting worse. That night, I could barely sleep. Every movement sent fresh waves of agony through my back. By morning, I couldn't get out of bed without tears streaming down my face. "Stop being dramatic," my mother said when I called her from my room. "Marcus barely touched you." But I knew this was different. Using my phone, I managed to schedule an appointment with a spine specialist for that afternoon. When I told my parents I was going to the doctor, they exchanged worried glances. "That's unnecessary," my father said quickly. "Just put some ice on it." "We don't need to involve outsiders in family matters," my mother added, her voice tight with anxiety. Their reaction only strengthened my resolve. For the first time, I saw their concern for what it was, not worry for my health, but fear of exposure. The drive to Dr. Sullivan's office was excruciating. Each bump in the road sent jolts of pain through my spine. By the time I arrived, I could barely walk upright. The nurse who took my initial assessment frowned at my pain level rating. "And this happened yesterday?" she asked, making notes in my chart. "How exactly did you sustain the injury?" I hesitated, years of conditioning making me want to protect my family, but something in her kind eyes made me tell the truth. "My brother threw me against a wall," I said quietly. "My parents said I provoked him." She paused in her writing, looking at me carefully. "This has happened before." I nodded, and for the first time in years, I felt tears forming, not from pain, but from the simple act of being believed. Dr. Sullivan, a tall woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, ordered immediate x-rays and an MRI. As I lay in the imaging machine, I thought about all the times I'd hidden bruises, made excuses, convinced myself it wasn't that bad. When Dr. Sullivan called me into her office to review the results, her expression was grave. The images on her screen showed my spine in stark detail, and even to my untrained eyes, something looked wrong. "Emma," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "I need you to listen carefully. This injury didn't just happen yesterday. Your spine shows evidence of repeated trauma over many years. The latest impact has caused severe damage that requires immediate attention." I stared at the images, seeing years of abuse mapped out in my bones. "What does that mean?" "It means," Dr. Sullivan said, reaching for her phone, "that I'm legally obligated to report this. And it means you have a choice to make about your future." As she dialed, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. For years, I carried the weight of my family's secrets, believing their lies about my role in my own abuse. But now, looking at the undeniable evidence on the screen, I knew the truth was finally going to come out. The specialist's next words would set in motion a chain of events that would change my life forever. And for the first time, I was ready to let it happen. Dr. Sullivan's report set off a whirlwind of activity. Within hours, I found myself speaking with a police detective who specialized in domestic violence cases. Detective Martinez listened patiently as I recounted years of abuse, her pen moving steadily across her notepad. Your medical records show multiple emergency room visits over the years, she said, reviewing a thick file. Broken finger at 12, concussion at 16, crushed hand at 20. Each time, the injuries were logged as accidents. I nodded, remembering how my parents had coached me before each hospital visit. Tell them you fell, they'd say. Tell them you were playing sports. Don't make your brother look bad. My parents, I explained to Detective Martinez, they always said I provoked him. That if I just behaved better, Marcus wouldn't get so angry. She looked up from her notes, her eyes kind but determined. That's what abusers want their victims to believe. But your spine specialist's report tells a different story. These injuries show a clear pattern of escalating violence. While I spoke with the detective, Dr. Sullivan arranged for me to be admitted to the hospital. The damage to my spine required immediate treatment to prevent permanent nerve damage. As the nurses settled me into my room, my phone exploded with messages from my family. "Where are you?" My mother demanded in a text. "You're causing unnecessary drama." "You better not be telling lies about your brother," my father warned. Marcus sent a single message, "You'll regret this." I turned off my phone, feeling both terrified and strangely liberated. The hospital social worker, Sarah, helped me file for an emergency protective order. "Your brother's threats, combined with the medical evidence, make this a clear case," she assured me. That evening, as I lay in my hospital bed, Detective Martinez returned with news. "We've spoken with your parents and brother," she said. "Their story is interesting." "Let me guess," I said, trying to smile despite the pain. "I'm clumsy and attention-seeking." "Actually, your brother claimed you attacked him first, and he merely defended himself. Your parents backed up his version." I closed my eyes, unsurprised but still hurt. Of course they did. But here's the thing, Detective Martinez continued, pulling out her phone. The spine specialist's report doesn't just show yesterday's injury, it shows years of systematic abuse. Your brother's story doesn't explain that. She showed me photos of my MRI and X-rays, pointing out old fractures, healed breaks, and accumulated trauma. "Bodies keep records," she explained, "and yours has been keeping detailed notes for years." The next morning, my Aunt Julia arrived. She was my mother's younger sister, the one who had always looked at Marcus with suspicion. "I knew something was wrong," she said, taking my hand. "I should have done more." "You couldn't have known," I assured her, but she shook her head. "I saw the signs. The way you flinched when he came near you, how you made yourself small around him. I didn't want to believe my own sister would allow this." Julia became my advocate, working with the hospital staff and police to ensure everything was properly documented. She also helped me realize something important. I wasn't alone anymore. The protective order was granted that afternoon. Marcus was legally required to stay away from me, and my parents were listed as involved parties due to their enabling behavior. The detective informed me they were investigating previous incidents as well. "Your brother's record isn't as clean as your parents pretended," Detective Martinez revealed. "There have been complaints from ex-girlfriends, co-workers, even neighbors. You're not the only one he's hurt." This information hit me hard. All those years my parents had made me feel like I was the problem. Like I was the only one who provoked Marcus's anger. But there had been others, and my parents had probably helped hide those incidents too. Sarah, the social worker, helped me develop a safety plan. Julia offered me a place to stay during my recovery, and Dr. Sullivan arranged for me to begin physical therapy once I was released from the hospital. "Your spine will heal," Dr. Sullivan assured me during her rounds. "But more importantly, you're breaking a cycle of abuse that could have continued for years." That evening, as I watched the sun set through my hospital window, I received one final text from my mother. "If you drop this nonsense now, we can all forget it happened. Family should stick together." I showed the message to Detective Martinez, who added it to her evidence file. "That's not how family should work," she said firmly. "Real family protects you. They don't cover up abuse." Looking at the message, I finally understood something that had eluded me for years. My family hadn't been protecting me by hiding Marcus's violence. They had been protecting him, at the cost of my safety and well-being. As I drifted off to sleep that night, my back supported by medical pillows and pain managed by proper medication, I felt stronger than I had in years. The spine specialist hadn't just exposed my injuries, she had exposed the truth that my family had buried for so long. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let them bury it again. 6 months after my hospitalization, I sat in a courtroom, listening to Dr. Sullivan testify about the extent of my injuries. The prosecutor displayed my MRI images on a large screen, each mark of abuse clearly visible to the jury. "These injuries," Dr. Sullivan explained, pointing to various areas of my spine, "show a pattern consistent with repeated traumatic impacts over many years. The most recent injury could have resulted in permanent paralysis if left untreated." Marcus sat at the defense table, wearing a suit that couldn't hide his rage. Our parents sat behind him, my mother dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, playing the role of the devastated parent. But their act wasn't working anymore. The prosecution had built a strong case. After my report, other victims had come forward. 2 of Marcus's ex-girlfriends, a former coworker, and even our childhood neighbor's daughter. Each testimony revealed the same pattern of violence and intimidation that I had endured. The defendant's sister wasn't his only victim, the prosecutor stated, but she was his first. And thanks to her courage in speaking up, she will be his last. During the trial's recess, Julia squeezed my hand. "You're doing great," she whispered. "I'm so proud of you." I've been living with Julia during my recovery, attending physical therapy 3 times a week. My back was healing, but more importantly, I was healing emotionally. With the help of a trauma counselor, I was finally understanding that none of the abuse had been my fault. The defense tried to paint me as unstable, attention-seeking, and prone to exaggeration, but they couldn't explain away the medical evidence or the pattern of behavior established by other victims. When my parents testified, claiming they had no idea about the abuse, the prosecutor was ready. "Mrs. Collins," she asked my mother, "how do you explain these hospital records? Each injury your daughter sustained was followed by a family vacation or expensive gift for Marcus. Were you rewarding your son for hurting your daughter?" My mother's facade cracked. "We were just trying to keep the peace," she whispered. The verdict came after 3 days of testimony, guilty on all counts. Marcus was sentenced to 8 years in prison, with mandatory anger management and psychiatric evaluation. My parents faced charges for child endangerment and obstruction of justice. As Marcus was led away in handcuffs, he looked back at me one last time. The hatred in his eyes no longer frightened me. I was stronger now, surrounded by people who actually cared about my well-being. 1 year after the trial, I stood in front of a group of domestic violence survivors, sharing my story. Detective Martinez had connected me with a support organization, and I'd found purpose in helping others recognize and escape abuse. Family loyalty shouldn't mean sacrificing your safety, I told them. Real family protects you, supports you, and never makes you feel responsible for someone else's violence. My back had healed better than expected, though some days were still challenging. But the emotional scars were healing too. I'd learned to stand tall, literally and figuratively. Julia sat in the audience, beaming with pride. She'd become more than an aunt. She was the mother figure I always needed. Through her, I learned what genuine family love looked like. My parents eventually pleaded guilty to reduced charges, accepting probation and mandatory counseling. They sent a letter through their lawyer, claiming they were sorry, but I wasn't ready to forgive them. Maybe someday, but not yet. Last week, I received an unexpected email from Dr. Sullivan. She was developing a training program for medical professionals about recognizing signs of long-term abuse, and she wanted to use my case as an example. "Your story," she wrote, "could help other doctors identify and help abuse victims before it's too late. You've turned your pain into purpose." Reading her words, I thought about that day in her office, when she first showed me the truth written in my bones. She hadn't just been my doctor. She'd been the first person to stand up and say this is wrong without qualification or excuse. Today, I work with domestic violence organizations, sharing my story and helping others find their voice. My medical records are used in training sessions for healthcare providers, teaching them to look beyond the surface of accident claims. Sometimes during these sessions, I show them my first MRI, the one that exposed years of hidden abuse. Bodies keep records, I tell them, echoing Detective Martinez's words. But it's up to us to read them and take action. My brother's violence left marks on my spine that will never completely fade, but they're no longer a source of shame or secret pain. They're evidence of survival, of strength, and of the importance of speaking truth to power. The spine specialist didn't just save my back that day. By exposing the truth, she helped me save myself. And now I'm helping others do the same, one story at a time.